أغرب مرة مستر مارك وكا وي ماستر هيا البلان بيجن أعمال أو بخوا وكا قوتي قالك مثلا خبرة كامزن البالي هيا خصوصا الجانبي جولف وكا رياضيات بيجن قالك شوي جزانا أو على الأغلب يعني نامو زانا جولف مثلا صراحة أنا بس يخبرته يعني مدرب يخبرتري الأمريكا دا ويدربنا لاعبش خبرتري ويدربانينا وكدو قالك جارة هاتيا كردستاني كم باشاريا بلان بيجن في ازديا قريا وتطوعي مساعدة بلان بيجن منظمات كريا جانبي ويب ديفلوبمنت بلان بيجن لغات البرمجة تشتي بي في جريداي وكدوجي جرين ريدينج وكا كورتي بيتشكريا جرين ريدينج شلو مثلا طريقتك حكا تو مثلا احتمالي سر بكي حكا تبي مثلا زانبي جولف شعا مثلا تهدف بيني مثلا صراحة خبرة قالك عمزنا تشي جانبي أعمال فا وتشي جانبي جولف فا وتشي جويب ديفلوبمنت فا أفروي محاضرة كديوا السر بلان بيجن انتربريال انديفر بلان بيجن مساعي رياضة الأعمال. Mr. Mark, you can start now if you want.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I am going to do my best to give you the best things that I've learned being an entrepreneur for about 20 years now. I've had my own business, and I'll give you the things that I've learned that I think are the most important lessons.
Okay. سخيراتنا وقت ما زماننا وحطنا ويما از وقت قلتي نزيجا بيست على خبرة هيا وكجمع عربي از في خبرين ورا مشاركة.
And please, when we're done, ask me any questions at all, and I will definitely leave some time to go over anything that you would like to ask me. But feel free to ask me anything at all.
Okay. هتشوفي سؤالك شيء هبي كاري مثلا سؤال خبيك كودفيل مهارته ده كودفيل بيفيرا سكيفا.
And I'll go through a presentation now, very briefly show you what I've done for my company, which maybe you've explained already, which is in the golf business. I had a TV product for about 7 years, and then I do a lot of coaching and teaching now.
Okay. So now مثلا أو جوارا presentation أخوه كي كابني تش خبرة أو كريه تش جانب جولفا تش جانب رياضة أعمال وهروها مثلا تش شغلة كري وجوارا دياكا ال في presentation ده في محاضرة كوجوارا شركة.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and play a very short video. Can you all see that?
هنا ممكن في بينا وفيديو كجوارا أوكي.
Yes, it's showing on the screen.
از بجمع با green reading طريقة هكا قولي بيني.
Aim point for the Golf Channel, PGA Tour and LPGA coverage.
هذه جائزة كشيء بيا.
It's slowly been sweeping the golfing world in the last 12 months. The very best golfers around the globe are giving putting a finger. It's not a secret cult, but a green-reading system. We've seen Adam Scott and Stacey Lewis roll their way to the top of the world.
طريقة قياس كرنا هدفي مثلا بري هكا دربا خبا بيجي هربجنا في green reading بلان بيجي system.
Right. So it started off as a software program that predicted how a golf ball rolled on a golf green, and it ended up being on TV for about 7 years. And then that turned into other products, which were really teaching products and teaching golfers how to play better.
So مثلا خبرة خوا بلان بيجي جانبي هندسي وجانبي برمجي بكارينا داكم مثلا وكا قلت الجولف ده استخدام بك ووسط يعني نبس مثلا يكاربي الجولف ده استخدام كي بل الجلك عروض التلفزيون واجدة احتمال كل سر تدريبي احتمال سركر.
Right. And I started it actually 20 years ago this year. So 2003 was the beginning of the company. So I've had to manage it for 20 years. And over that time, things changed and my products changed and what I was offering changed. And one of the big things we'll talk about is how to be able to adapt as you go into business. Sometimes what you think is going to work and be successful isn't, and you have to be able to pivot off of that and find something that will actually work and that people want.
So مثلا بيجي بلان بيجن نزيجا بيست على وكم قلتي وعز الفيكاري شغل ما ومنتجاتي مش تذكرين يا مثلا تشتري معك استخدام ذكري غيري وتشتري مثلا هروها شغال كرد عرضان دي بوقت رزي مجبور بغيرين ما ومثلا أزي جوارا باجي مثلا برا بيجي.
Right. So if we go through kind of let me go next slide. Hold on. If we go through the process of starting a company, it really starts with just having an idea or a need that isn't being met by the market. And so everybody usually every day sees things that they wish were out there, either products or services that are not out there in the marketplace that you wish were out there.
مثلا بيجي أنا بريار تشتكي مثلا من البروسيس نيرن وكا كشام تغييره وكتيا بيجي قال جارا مثلا تشنهاية مدفيها كهواي بل السكر النبو ومثلا أو تشنبو بيجي يعني بوقتنا مثلا هدا بتشتغل ديار بالواقع ده.
And sometimes the best products are very, very simple. So for instance, Velcro on the left side here and the zipper, Velcro is one of the best selling products of all time. And it was a very, very simple idea that somebody made. And he got a patent on it, and it's to this day one of the best-selling products ever. Very, very simple idea. Are you familiar with Velcro?
There was too much interruption. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say Velcro was one of the best-selling inventions of all time, and it's a very, very simple idea. It's not complicated at all, but it's something that is very, very useful.
طبعا مثلا شكرا وكان في بلان بيجن نوعية لصقية يعني تشتكي زري بدأ فكرة بل تشتكي عالمية عالمها ما اعتماد السرقة يعني زلام كاري مثلا في بكي بلان بيجن مثالك شوارع.
Right. So the hard part, believe it or not, is not thinking of a new product. The hard part is developing it and selling it. And so what I'll do is go through kind of the business plan that you should create at the beginning, which I think what you all are doing for this class is creating a plan, a proposal. And I did it at the beginning of my company, and it was a very, very good exercise. And I'll kind of go through that briefly and then talk about some of the things I've learned from it.
البيجي يعني بصراحة بدنا من زحمة يا اختراع يا مثلا زحمة يا مشاريع نأوا حكا مثلا بلان بيجن تطوير بكي العفو لا مثلا تشي بكي بل تشاو تطوير بكي بفروش يعني مثلا تخلقيت مع بكي هكا بفروش ونها مثلا زي جوارا السيرفر نقاطة مش زي جوارا بحسكم كان مثلا شاو في شغلي بكي.
So if we go through the main components of this, and this is work, because when you make a business plan, you really have to think of all the things that can go wrong also. So it's not just about saying, here's a great product that I want somebody to invest in, but you have to be very honest and say, here's all the things that could potentially make it fail. And as somebody who's reading a business plan, I want to make sure that you've thought about all those things.
بجهة مثلا هريك جوايا كخطة عمل هذه خطة عمل هذه لازم نبس بيجي ولا بمنتجك وزي أكيد ما أفكر بنجاحينه بل لازم تيم الفشل بالنيرين زين بك شن مشاكل مساعد وين بيشاوي.
So if you go through kind of starting at the beginning, the executive summary is just a one paragraph overall description of what you're trying to offer. And then the company description, if you have a company, is just describing what you think the company will be. Products and services is very obvious. It's just what are you offering? That's kind of the easy part.
Okay. بيجي مثلا executive summary بلان بيجي بداية يعني وقت ملخص كي الستر فكرة خارج بيجي. الدورة company description يعني وقت وصفك السيرفي شغلي رأي سيرفي منظمة يعني بشركة ده. الدورة رقم 3 خدماته بلان بيجي منتجاته ده. هرتي نقطينا.
And then where it starts getting more difficult is with the market analysis. So what the market analysis is describing how many other products out there are really fulfilling the need. So for instance, when I was doing my golf TV product, there was really nothing out there, but people had tried it back in the 70s and 80s and failed. So it's not only what other products are out there, but also how big is the market? In other words, how many people will actually buy this? So you might have a great idea that only 10 people care about, So for instance, when I did golf TV, there was only 3 TV stations that broadcast golf. So I had 3 customers and that's it. Versus something like Velcro, which is going to have 8 billion customers.
اوكي الفيدريت بيجي مثلا يعني شغلات زحمتر نقطة شهرية تحليلات السوق بلا مجين تحليلات سوقية زحمتها في شيء أنا مثلا تم تهجك بيني احتمال مثلا فكراوي زيادة قريبة احتمال يعني فكراوي قلا كباجبي بس مشكلة شيء لازم تسامي كابنك كي كري عرضي كري شندنا على سبيل المثال مثلا الفيدري الباوي وقتي مشروع خي جولف شكري سي قناتي بتنيبون وان هر سي قناتي بتني مثلا فكراوي مثلا عرض عندش كده يعني هاكا مثلا تبي تشتكي اوكي مخسر الفيدري انه لازم تسامي كاكي كري
Okay, and then the competitive analysis is who else is competing with you out there. So I always try to go into products that there's almost nobody competing with me, so I find that much easier than going into a market where you've got 50 competitors. So one of my products, the TV, the Aimpoint green reading, there I have no competitors, and I've never had competitors for 20 years. And I have another product that's a statistical program for golf, and I have lots of competitors. I have probably 20 competitors, and it's definitely more difficult if there's lots of people trying to do the same thing.
الفيدريت بيجي مثلا يعني تحليلها منافسة خوبك يعني بيجي صراحة يعني بعمل وقت شغلها رح تري أوك فكرة كبينة هكا نهاية المنافسة كي تنابي هكا منافسة تنابي أكيد مثلا فكرة توي سهلتر مثلا نجاحينه سو الفيدريت باوي مثلا أين بوينت جولف أبا مشوارة قوتي هكا برمجة وهندسة تطبيق كريستال أرض الواقع لسر جولف فكراوي مثلا منافسة وينابون وش برفيك مثلا نجاحي يعني أما أكاد نوعا ما
So that's a big decision you have to make is, do you want to try to get into a market where lots of other people are competing with you at the same time?
There was interruption, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that's a hard decision to make is, do you want to get into a market where there's lots of other people competing with you versus finding something that nobody is doing?
اوكي سو الفيديو وكم مغوتي يعني انا وهكا فكرتها يعني منافسة انا باشترى انا هكا منافسة هابن اكيد مثلا احتمالي هي يكيدي هابي مثلا شغلتها بكيف فشل بي
Okay, and then the remaining parts of this risk analysis is a really important one, and the risk analysis is how many things can cause you to fail. So it might be legal problems, it might be other competitors, it might be somebody in your company leaves and goes to another company. It might be your factory burns down, but you literally have to think about all the things that can cause you to fail and put them in writing and be very, very honest about it.
لكن الفيديو مثلا بيجي تحليلها خطر بيجي مخاطر يصير مشروعاتها يكش من مخاطرها مثلا أمي بيجين يعني مشاكل قانونية احتمال مثلا اشترت شيء من يعني هكا تسجيله أو ندرس على سبيل المثال وأكو احتمال مثلا منافستها هبنا شغل وان وكا قلتي باشتري به وأكو يعني مثلا أمي بيجين هكا يعني مثلا شغلتها فشل يعني يا مثلا موظفك ايش انت شو تركها شغلتها ده شو شغلك دي تري مشاكلها مهينة.
All right. And then company management is just simply who's running the company, because you obviously want to give people confidence that you have good people managing your company and involved with your company.
Okay. إدارة شركة بلامبيجن أو كسيها كي واقع قوتي الكابين شغلته والإدارة شغلنا وكابينك هي مثلا وشغلي بريبابي. جماعة بيجم يعني السؤال ما يتعليكم بس ورفيش شغل بنويسنا زي برستيج بيجيكم. Mr. Mark, do you prefer to answer the questions now or at the very end of the...
If you have a question right now, I can answer, sure.
So we have a question in the chat. We have Siamat saying that what kind of risks did you face?
Well, for me, the risks with Aimpoint Golf was, the first risk was that I wrote software to be accurately predict how a ball rolls. The first risk was it just didn't work. Is that it just didn't work as well as I wanted. The next risk was that there was only three TV companies who would run it, and if they all said no, I was out of business. I was finished. The third risk was that in golf at the time, everybody thought it was impossible to do what I did. And so a lot of people just said, no, it's impossible. And they wouldn't even talk to me. So those were three of my biggest risks in the beginning.
بيجي مساعدة هري مزنتري مديتين نقطة بري وكا قوتي يعني ما منتجة متشكري برنامج بو برنامج وكا قوتي مبخافة شل يعني بداية وكا اختار البرنامج شيء من البرنامج ده أو نبو نقطة دوي يعني السيقانات بتنال دولة دمون وان الجولف وان هرسيكاتنا إذا عادكر يعني تقبليا ويا كيمبو وبرنامجنا مشروع يعني ني إملا بدنا خلق كده بس نجاحاني والنقطة الأساسية خلقها عمل قوتي تفشل إنه تشفيرات تجبي شغليا.
The other risk that I always have to think about is that if you build a successful product, is that if you're making any money at all, immediately other people will try to copy you. And so the risk is, how do you protect that? That's a huge piece of your plan, is how do you protect yourself from people copying you or stealing your intellectual property? And so I got a patent on my product, but it took 7 years to get the patent. And if I didn't get the patent, it would be much easier for people to copy it.
بيجي مثلا نقطة تري يعني دماغه تشغلك كير وفي شغل نجاح يعني احتمال قالك خلق محاولة بيكون شغلته تقليدي بيكون يعني بصراحة بتشتكي شائع بيجي في حالة مثلا لازم تحاسبي خبرك وتحماية خبرك إجبي عليه ويبقى مثلا وكا عم بيجي جاربي قانوني يعني حقوق خاصة عم بيتنسر ده مثلا.
Good. Any other questions about that?
We have Mr. Murad here. He says that if you want, I can translate. Okay, Mr. Murad, if you want, you can perform the translation. It's okay to me.
Okay. If what?
Mr. Murad, the CEO, sorry, the president of the academy wants to perform the translation.
Hear from the translation?
Yeah, he wants to perform the translation. Hello, Mr. Murad.
Okay, fine. Yeah, fine.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Fuad.
Hello, Murad.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for doing.
Sure.
So I think I will help translation a little bit, because it's really hard to do an entire hour, by one person. So I will help a little bit. So yeah,
Okay.
feel free, just as you did, and I will help.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. That's so nice of you. Okay, please do it.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so the sales and marketing plan, we'll talk a little more about. That's just what are you going to price it at? Who are you selling it to? And how do you build awareness? So it's one thing to have a product. It's a very different thing to have people know about your product and buy it.
بجد تشتري ترى إنه زلام شلو منتجي خو زلام بسوقينه ويعني زلام شلو بفروش إجبار يعني أو مسألة مختلف. المسألة جد شكيت هابت بخازي بفروش وكتشاوا بفروش وكتشاوا عالم جزانة بأنه مثلا أو منتجتها هاي وبكرة.
Okay, and then the financial projections is a really, really important piece, because nobody is going to give you money if they think you're going to lose money, right? The whole point of starting a business is to be profitable, and you have to do a very honest financial projection, because, I used to work in finance, and if I looked at the financial projection, I can say, that's wrong, there's no way they're going to sell that many, and I can tear it apart very easily. So you have to be very honest about it, how long it's going to take to make your money back. Try to be as accurate as possible about how many you're going to sell. And then it's got to be a good financial, they call it a pro forma for people to look at, because most people giving you money are going to look at that very, very quickly, your financial piece.
بجاء آلية أو آلية إمالي الشركة أو كتخمينات السعر أو شركة مثلا كان درابيو تشيكا مستقبلا أو كان دول مصرفك بيجي أو قالك يشتهي هري مهمتريا وقالك مهمة إجبار يك دراب نادتا أو يك استثمار المشروع تدناك كمشروعي ويني مربح يعني بنهاية المطاف وبيجبروك يعني لازم بلانات الشركة آلية تمويلية أو آلية مالية لازم قالك يا واضح به ولازم وكقولتي مثلا بشتي كان سالة أو مشروع أو تكلفة قوي سدينة مثلا ويبقى مربح إجبروك يعني بجاء أتوقف في شغل مديتية في شغل مكرية شغل أزل التقريرين بيجن أو الخطة مالي بنيرم يعني بسهالية أذكار من مشروعك بنيرمها كمديد مثلا انه او بلانات شاكرين امالي ناس راسته مثلا بيجي برويك قال لك هم السلوكي شغلك باش بتكرن.
Okay, and then the last piece is just asking for money, basically, and that's how much do you need, how long is it going to last you, what are you going to do with the money?
بجاري درت طلبات دراف بكيش إيش ممولة كاتي تشاو درافت تشاو طلبكي وتشبيكي مثلا أو شيء مهمة.
Okay. Any questions so far?
برسيارك هي.
Okay. I got into a business that nobody had done before. And I show this picture because this is a ski jumper, and the method he's using is called, I can't remember, but it's a method where they split their skis. And the first person to do it was basically laughed at, and he ended up setting all the world records. And now every single person in the world, this is the only way they do ski jumping. And the point there is when you're really starting a new business that nobody's seen before, originally, they always say initially ridiculed. People will make fun of you at the beginning, and it's actually very difficult. I had a lot of people telling me I was crazy when I started Aimpoint, and you have to have thick enough skin to push through that and believe in your product and keep going.
أبيت تلاقي قالكي أو وقتي مروف شغلكي بكا كبرين هنا هاد بكرين يعني تقريبا أو بالأحرى عالم وكحنا خبز العمات كالبس.
So this is kind of generally what happens. First, they ignore you. So you come out with a good product and they ignore you. Then they make fun of you. Then they attack you. And that's the hard part, is when they basically criticize everything you're doing. And then finally, you'll get to a point where if it's a really good product, it'll be accepted in the market generally. And I went through all 4 of those stages with Aimpoint.
So الفيدرين مثلا يعني جا نقطة هنا بري ببداية شغلتك تجاهل كنا والدورة مثلا واستخفاف خطة كنو حنا شيء خطة كنا والدورة مهاجماتك كنا يعني تنمروا أو بلان بيجي مستر شغلة تشيبه وبيشتي النجاح ديني همتها تقبلياتك كنا ومستر ماركت شن بالنقطة هم غير مشيا.
All right. So when you're starting, the big thing is you've got to just take your first step, which is creating the business plan, doing some research, actually building something that you can sell. But it's actually very hard to take that first step to kind of get in the game. I call it. You've got to get in the game.
تشتبري مهم إنه تخطوة بري تببي أو أزبج متك هتشلو تبكى بي العبيدة مثلا كخطوة بري تببي كمثلا تخطط شغل تشبكي أو بزنس بلان أخوات تشبكي ومنتج أخوات مثلا تشبكي.
And that can be one of the scariest steps is when you're first starting, because you really have no idea if you're going to be successful or not.
بشكرتي تقريبا خطوة قالك إيش هم كيف ترسترها إجبرت نزعني إنه تنجحي أنا.
Okay. The other thing is what people don't realize when they look at my business, for instance, is they think I just woke up one day and my company was running. And what they don't realize is that it was 4 years between starting my product and filing the patent and actually getting my first paycheck. So I didn't get a paycheck for 4 years. And during that whole time, I was developing it and trying to sell it. And it was a much longer process than people realize.
بجا أغلب خلق بهارت كان إنه مثلا زلام شركة شركة روشة كي وروجا دي زلام ربح شركة وشركة كاملة بجا بس نوسايا بجا شركة ما چار سالا ما سر شغلیم هتانا كي منتج شكرو ما وكا قودي حق امتلاكي شبهات بجنتي حق امتلاكي معاني وبشتي 4 سالا نو يعني تشيكي هري بري او راتبي هري بري شغلي ما قشتا ما يعني 4 سالا قالك شغلي مثلا كي منتج شيبو.
We already did the scary part. The other thing, I used to work at Hewlett Packard, which was a high-tech company, and they had a saying about everything they developed, and it was first it has to work, and then it has to work fast. And that's more and more true every single year, that you can make something that's a great product, but if it doesn't work fast, then people don't care. So if you have an app, it has to be fast. If you're delivering something, you've got to be able to deliver it quickly. Speed is a hugely important thing in today's market.
بري بشغلي شركة كليوباترا شغليم شركة تكنولوجيا بو أو آي تي بو بجا مقولة كوان بود جوجارة بري لازم تشتري شركة بشغله وعددوه لازم سريع بشغله. بجد السرعة قالك يا مهمة مثلا وقت مثلا تطبيقك شيكي يعني منتجك بواصليني وقت قالك يا مهمة والسرعة وكشندي سريعة مثلا وقت تشتري سريع بعالم استخدام نادم شيكي قالك يا مهمة.
The last thing, it's funny, it's out of order here, but keep overhead low. So, overhead is things you have to pay for every month, whether or not you're making money. So it's rent for an office space, insurance, employees. I've never had an office in my life. I've worked out of my house for 20 years because that just reduces my overhead, so that when you start a business, your revenue is up and down all over the place. And the lower your overhead is, the more likely you can succeed. So keep your fixed expenses as low as possible.
بشت تكاليفها ثابت لازم تقيم بين بشكل يعني شند تكاليف تقيم بين إجبار تكاليف ثابت وكان بيشن إيجاري وكرواتب موظفة وكتأمينه افتش الوسع بيجي الشركة خام تشكر 20 سالة ما أوفيسك يعني أوفيسك ما إيجارنا كرجبار الدخل ما مثلا متذبذب وجارنا يبلند بو جارنا كيم بو شوي كم مهمة هكا مثلا استمرارية شغل إنه مصرفاتها كيم بي أو مصرفات ثابتة كيم بي.
Any questions so far? Or
برسالة
we can
هي
come back at the end and ask all the questions you want also.
ومكان برسالة بكون تاليا السيمينار جون كان برسالة.
درست.
Yeah. Okay. Adapt. Now, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but when I first started my company, my patent was originally for an application for a phone. At the time, it was a Palm Pilot, and I tried for about 6 months to develop that and sell it, and it just didn't work well enough. And I had to very quickly take my software and change it so I could use it on TV, which did end up selling. So what happens a lot of times when you start a new business is you have an idea of what you're going to do, and it just doesn't work. Either people don't care, or you can't get the word out there, and you have to be willing to change your original plan to do something else that you see is going to work.
بجا adoption وكجودي شلون زلام يعني خو بقو هرينا الجور واقع أو الجور وضع يعني قالك يا مهمة بيش مرة وقتي جربري من سوفت وير خوشيجر إيش تطبيق كيش إد موبايل تقريبا ششمها هكا مديت الدورة وناش شغل يعني متشاوكر من تطبيق غيرانت أو من سوفت وير غيرانت إنه أزبفروش محطات التلفزيونية وبشتنجي هذا فروتين يعني أو جوهرين أو يعني قابلية زلامها به زلام بجوهري أو بنت adoption أو قالك يا مهمة.
A good friend of mine started the company CNET.com, which you may be familiar with, but it was one of the first internet companies. And his original plan was to be a TV station where it was a show on TV. And he did that for a year or two. And then he ended up turning it into a website and made billions of dollars, but it was not what he originally planned on and what he originally got funding for. He had to change his business model to something that ended up being very, very successful, but it was not with his original plan.
هذا كيما سينت كتهنا شو ويب سايت زانبن أو وكقولي مؤسسة ويب سايت جربري برنامج خشيكر ده بفروشان محطات التلفزيونية وطبعا نشغلي أو يعني بيشتينجي كرا ويب سايتك وويب سايتي مليون دولار قرتن.
Okay. For example, on my original product and my patent was on the left here. So that's back in the early 2000s, that was a Palm Pilot, not even a phone. And it would basically do the same thing that my TV product ended up doing. So the one on the right is the TV graphic that I created, which was successful, but the one on the left, I never sold a single one, and I just gave up on it and took the software and turned it into what you see on the right.
بشأف وكقولي شلون مثلا مجهرا أو أدبين الآلية شبه أو تلفونه وكقولي تطبيقات التلفونه بو طبعا أبد أو منتجنا شغلي ونهاته مثلا فروتن أبد بيني آلية راستي أو خطة تتشكرن أو سوفت وير خطة شد كمثلا وبريات تلفزيوني أو تتفروتن.
Okay. One of the biggest things I learned was that making a product is much easier than selling the product. Meaning, I had in 2004, I was already doing demonstrations here on the right side for the TV product, and the TV station didn't end up using it until 2007. So between the time it was working and the time that somebody actually paid me for it was almost 4 years.
بجا تشجرنات تشتكي قالك براح ترش رو تناوي بجش مرة كالده زارو تشار سوفت وير مي او برنامج مي افتكه هنشيت كل السلمساري تابا جولف كده زارو تشار ما اف راي محطات التلفزيون الكر وطبعا يكي نكري هتانكي ده زارو هافت يعني تقريبا 6 ساعات تشتكي وسا هتانكي مكاريبوس منتج بفروشو.
The next piece, which is really important, is building competitive advantage, which is how do I protect myself, basically? How do I prevent other people from getting in the same space as I am and competing with me? The way I do it was with trade secrets, patents, and trademarks was if you can, that's helpful. The only issue with trademarks is, at least in the US, they're publicly available. So people can read with patents, people can read your patents and learn exactly how you do what you're doing, which is frankly is sometimes it's a good protection. Sometimes it's no protection at all. I have 5 patents and I don't know if any of them are particularly helpful in protecting my software.
بيتشتي دير كتشاوات حماية منافسة خوبكي أو يعني كقواتة المنافسة ده كتشاوات حماية ويبكي بجد يعني سيشا طريقة يعني يكجي مثلا إنه أسرار شغل خا احتفاظ بيبكي يكجي أف بنت باتنت أو براءة اختراع الأمريكا بنت أو العراق بنت براءة اختراع وقت تشتكي اختراع كرهنجي مثلا أو منتج إتاء بيجي حاليا بينج براءة اختراعي هينا بيجي بس نزانهم كأنه أو تشتكي يعني أو حماية شغلية ممكن يعني إجبار وقت براءة اختراع تقديم السر معلومات سر منتج خام قد درباست كده بيجي عالم أو تشتكي يوجا قوتي متوفرة تبي كاربا بخوندا سكرتي مثلا أفكار شغلتها أو سياسة شغلتك قاربا عالم قاربا معلوماتها بين بيجي نزان كيجوان حماية متكا يعني بيجي حماية شغلي خا أو حماية إنه شركات مثلا باشترى أو تشتكي لك مهمة.
Okay, another way you can build competitive advantage is your service, how well you respond to your customers, and your reputation. So I always say everything can be stolen except your reputation. And so it's really important that you have better service with your customers. For instance, I have in my statistical program, I have a text group chat with every one of my customers, and they can ask me any question they want at any time. And nobody else I compete with does that.
إجا تشتي تلقى لك مهمة إنه خدمات تقدميني وطبيعتها خدماتها وسمعاتها بجد ما سبيشم إنه عالم كارت تشتها مكاش تبدزة بس نقارا سمعتها تشتبدزة أفتشتي لك مهمة مرة مثلا زبائن مي مجروبة كي تكستينج وارا شكليا كانوا هر برسيارة كوانها بي كارنو برسيارة فاش ما بكنو أو مثلا شركات ديتر أو منافسة من ديتر مثلا منافسة دوي مثلا أو برنامج إحصائي السر جولف بيجي كان سؤالش ممكن بيجي بهوناك ميكي تروي خدمة وارد وفريني سو خدمة وسمعة قالك يا مهمة البدل.
All right. Another one which people don't talk about, which is critically important, is having good relationships with your business partners, with people, with your customers. Don't ever sacrifice the quality of your relationship with your customers because you want to make an extra dollar. So I've done many things in my life in business where I was actually losing money on it, but it was protecting my relationship with my customers.
علاقة وكجودي علاقة حقيقي وطبيعي تب بزباين تفرج شيكي قالك يتشكي مهمة وبجل لازم نلسر أو علاقة لازم وكجودي نلسر إنه استفادة مادي تجيب بجي قالك علاقات مثلا مي وكجودي ماديا نزلت خسرين بس مع هذا احتفاد كرب وكجودي بحوالي تقو زباين يخل شغل ده.
Right. So it's in the long term, the real value is in the relationship with somebody, not necessarily with any individual sale or transaction. So you really have to protect your relationships at all costs.
انت حماية علاقات تدخل بجيب خلقيرة وقالك يا مهمة شبر بالنهاية وكقولتي فائدة بس تشتكي تبفروشي جارتي بس له علاقات طويل الأمد.
All right. And then back to the same idea, protect yourself, because what I find, and because I run my own company, when I'm dealing with big companies, they really don't care about me and my company. So you have to be very careful that they don't steal your information, steal your products, steal your customers. I've had that happen to me many, many times. And so you have to do your best to protect yourself and your products and your company. Part of that, what I say is trust your gut about people, which is if I have a bad feeling about somebody I'm doing business with, I've always been correct. They've always ended up doing something bad to me when I didn't trust them in the beginning.
بجا يعني ترجي كبقرة فكرة بري وكا حماية تشلو حماية قوبكي بجا قلقا مهمة ديمتي ثقاتا بندلتش بجتا بالأحرى بندلتش قودتا ثقاتا بويبي بجج مرة مثلا تعاملا يعني ايه وكا قوتي مدلي خودت قو قبل ند باش من الشغل ده والعلاقات بوان يعني قالك شو عندك كاتن انه ند قنجيا مثلا تعدل مكرن الشغل مكرن او تعدل مثلا ياوي معلوماتي تدزن ياوي زبايني تدزن مثلا ويبني ياوي تعدل يا تعدل شغلي تاكن ايش بيك قالك مهمات زاني بحتى شركات مازن مثلا تحاولين او حاولان او بالاحرى وسام مكرنجي قالك يا مهمات زاني بيتشاو حمايه خوتي.
All right. The other thing I've found out, even though I sign contracts with a lot of people that I've worked with, if you're dealing with people with bad character, it doesn't matter what they put in the contract, they're still going to cheat or break the contract. So it's really important you try to do business with people who are honest with good character.
بجا إنسان ند باش بن حتى كتعقد غير تشكر هروش خارجي عقد ركابن أوي وكقولتي خارجي عقد وتشتت ند باش كن قالك يا مهمة إنه علاقاتها أو شغلتها بشخصية ثقة به وشخصية وكقولتي صادق به وشخصية مثلا باش به.
The other thing is people, especially dealing with companies, they will usually they'll ultimately act in their own best interest, which means if you can predict what's in somebody's best interest, that is probably what they're going to do over time. And it's especially true when you're dealing with other companies, and the bigger the company, the more true that becomes.
بجا تشتكي دي تري وقت تقريبا ديم سراس لانه هل طرفكي او تعاملك او حركتك الجول مصلحه خوا وكمصلحه باش تجري تشاوب وساكا بجو مهم بوقت تعاملك بقدر تزانبي كمصلحه وانا شيء اشبر يعني تقريبا شبه مؤكد او الجول مصلحه خوا وتعاملك مستقبلا وطبعا او تشت خاصه الشركات عشان الشركات ماستر بتر او تشتي واضح.
And one of the last things I put in here is be willing to bluff. And what I mean by that is I've had many people who copied my patents and have stolen my trademark. And I've had to tell more than a few people that if they don't stop, I'm going to sue them. And I've had no intention whatsoever of suing them, but that's actually worked very well, is threatening legal action, even though I was actually going to do nothing.
بجا هذه ترجي بجا جارنا مثلا بجا شندك او سام منتجين وسوفت وير مدزين مثلا دزينو وتقليد كرن واقع قوتي بجا ما تهديد كرن انه مقطوان ازي و بما محكمه هكوا افتشنا ساكنان بجا مع انه رغبان من نبو او نيا من نبو زي بما محكمه بس مترساندن مثلا يعني وبالاحرى بجا مترساندن بجا جانا او ترساندنا يعني ايه يكي وسا بخازة شغلتها يعني نا قانونيا او ترسانن في دل مكر مثلا او ساكنين او اشخاص.
Okay, and then I think the last one here is have a plan B for everything, which means I have to always assume that my first plan is going to fail, and I always have to have a backup plan. So anything I'm doing, part of the planning process is saying, what happens if that fails? What happens if I can't do that? And be very prepared to do your next plan after the one you really want to do.
تشتكي قالك مهمة ديم خطة زلمة بديلها به أو بنت بلان بي لازمها به أو خطة بيها به وقت هر شغلك تاكر أو هر جزء كيش مرحلة شغل تاكر لازمة ديم بلانات بيها به دك بلانا يكنا شغلي بلانات دوي مثلا تبكار بي.
All right. I think the last one we'll do here is some other piece of advice, which I'll say evolve, which is build multiple sources of revenue. So what that means is I at all times want to have at least 3 to 5 different products for revenue to come in, because if you only have one product, which for 6 years I only had one product, if that goes away, then you've got nothing left. And so you really want to hedge your risk by having multiple different products that you're selling, possibly to different customers, so that you always have some money coming in.
بجد شكديم هما لازم ديم مصادر عائدات أو مصادر درافت جي مثلا تقري لازم متعدد يعني إنه بس يكي بتنبه بيش تقريبا 6 سالة أو بس منتجة كي مبتنبو وطبعا خطرك تشتغلوا منتجات دراوي سكنة مثلا قال لك يا مهمة ديم يعني بيشش منتجات تهابن أو خدمات تهابن دك يكجي عرقلي إيدي ترم بشغلن.
And then the last piece there is leveraging your assets, customers, and relationships. That just means to be able to take what you already own, whether it's for me, it's my software or my customers that I sell to, and be able to sell them different products. For my assets, I can use my software and create 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different products out of it that are different, but they're all based on the same software. And then with customers, if you're selling one thing to your customers, they usually will buy a second thing from you. So it's much easier to sell new products to your existing customers than to new customers. And then relationships is just your business relationships. If I'm already working with somebody with Aimpoint Golf, it's easy to bring them a totally different product again and work with them on that.
تشتري إنه الاستفادة بكي إيش تشتري هاي أو تشتري هاي مثلا وزباين إخوة وعلاقات إخوة كتشتري هاي مثلا جو حالة مثلا أو سوفت وير ما از نفس السوفت وير بيشش منتجة تشيتكا أو بيشش منتجات مختلف تشيتكا في حالة استفادة كله إنه شوي مثلا سوفت وير يادي ترجي مثلا زباينتها مثلا عادة كزباينتها كجارك تشتكرين هنجاوي منتجة جديد جوش تكرر مستفادة شوي كيجي كروش علاقات وكقولتي علاقات بخلق رأيي كيفان هرسي تشتد رئيسي تشتد هاي وزباينتها وعلاقاتها تكاري منتجات نديتر مثلا بسوقين.
All right. And then the last thing is when you're running your own company or starting a company, you will work a lot. You will work every day and you will work longer hours than people who go to work for somebody else. And you have to make sure you give yourself a break at some point. Otherwise you're going to burn out. It is a lot of hours. It's more work than you'll ever work for another person. So just make sure you balance your life.
تشتري قال لك هم انه مثلا شغل طوري وشو بس شغل بقال لك ساعتي يعني قال لك ساعتها لازم وقت خو بديتي وطبعا ايه شغلي خوبك او شركه خوبك بقال لك بترس شغله الشخص كي بش موظف هي كي او شركه ديره بالشغل ايش قال لك ساعتها تسكي الشغل ده واختي قال لك ساعتها الشغل ده جي لازم تقول خو بدي خو تستراحي بكو قوي وصل شو سيده so لازم تقول خو بدي خو ايش علي النفسي بقى.
Okay, any questions? I am open to questions.
بشكل برسيالات وحابنا زي موجودة. كلامك.
شباب هجي جوي برسيارة كابي فرسير ورا خبرة كم أزنا البالة وكارن برسيارة كم مقدمين.
تدي فؤاد يعطي ساعات از بيجم ودفون او كنت بيجم جماعة تستقبلون كلينا نادو
إذا رأى بخير سؤالم أو مثلا كانها مشروعك الفكري تدابي ومثلا أم بجم ما وكا تيت حالك باش تبي وكا نفسيا تعديل تبكا يا وسربيا كرام بجم وكا مشروعك تهبي الفكري تبي تدفي تشيكي وفرسك كتبر دستيتا مباشرة توي فرسي إشخورا استقلال بكي وفرسي إشتاس نديم تشكي حتى تكاربي مشروع خبريفا بي تشاوى تحملية فيديو فيراكي حتى تكاربي سركاتني تدابيني.
So if you are not feeling completely okay, but you do see a business opportunity that come ahead and you try to take a benefit of it, while maybe personally you are not still ready for it, how will you stay engaged or do it?
That's the hard part. The hard part is you never really know whether you're going to be successful at a new opportunity, and it's very scary sometimes. And so for me, the way to do it was keep working at it, but keep my expenses very low. Because what I don't want to do is go spend all my money on something that fails, right? So you've got to be careful about how you spend money when you're doing it. And I had many mornings where I woke up in the morning saying, I'm wasting my time. Why am I still doing this? And I almost quit many times. Over 3 years, I was waiting to sell this. And literally I woke up panicking sometimes about not being successful. And then eventually, it was, I sold a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, but it was hard. It's definitely, you definitely have to be willing to wake up scared and decide if you're going to keep going or not.
رجعت تشتغلكي او اكيد يعني شغلكي او بدايه شغل تشتكي يبترسى مثلا زلام نزانش بس زلام نزانش شغلي نجحي انا بجيش مرجي تقريبا 6 ساعه قال جالس بهز راد بوم انه مقود اف شغلنا نجحي ويكبي منتجين اكري وطبعا الناس قال جرا قسمه وحافه انه سرقه شغل بدم ليه مثلا بشتين قدرا شغل مهنك منتج خفروتو دورا بترو دورا بتر هذا انا قيت شيء اكيد وقت تدرس بشغلتك تشتهري مهمتري انه تم صاريفه قد كيم في مثلا درافي قوم في خرانه كي درافي باتها بتكاربي وكغوتي بمين الشغل ده ندرافي خسري خرابكي افتشتكي مهمه وقدو يعني اكيد لازم تجهز بيجي انه شغل وقلتي كرتي بناجح كرتنا ناجح ولازم استمراريه اذا حبيت انا كي بناجح
سيامن كرم جاكا برسيارة كتابي.
Hello, Mr. Mark. First thing I want to thank you for this pretty amazing presentation. I'm asking regarding alternative plan. What I mean, if you didn't succeed at the beginning and you didn't be what you are now, so what would the plan be like?
Well, plan B at the time for me was just go get a job with a company. So I worked at 2 big companies before I started Aimpoint, and then Aimpoint took a long time before it became, before it made any money. And I was just going to give up on it and go back and just look for a job, which I didn't want to do. But that plan B was, I need to go get a job. So, the main thing was I kept my expenses very low. So no offices, no extra spending, no extra travel, spent as little money as possible while I was trying to develop Aimpoint. And that's just the reality of what you have to do. I didn't raise money for Aimpoint. I paid for it myself, which means I didn't have somebody giving me a ton of money to go spend on things. So it made the process probably longer, but I was probably 1 week away from quitting Aimpoint and going and looking for a job when I finally got my first contract with Golf Channel.
اكيد وكقولتي لازم بلانمنا بيجي بلانمنا بي او انه هكا از شركه من ناجحي از بقارم شركه قادره شغلهم كموظف كبرين قد شركه مازن راز شغلهم يعني بلانم انه از وكقولتي از بقارم شغلك فول تايم دوجت شتي تر مثلا مدرابه خو مصرف كر يكي دراف ندامه سو درابه كي مثلا بس مدنا ومدرابه خو مصرف كر بس تشتري رئيسي تر مصرف خو مكيم كر مثلا مصرف خو نا اوفيسك دورتو نم مثلا نم السفر كر سر شغل وكقولتي هتانا كي مقارب از منتجك مو طبعا بجبري منتجين بتفروتن تقريبا باسبوع كي يعني از سر حافظ بمناسبه تركين مكم نهار بفروتن يعني كنت شغل مبطال كرباز وغيرها من شغلك فول تايم.
الو السلام عليكم سيدة.
سلام عليكم.
سيدة بس بسألك هاي مدفيت أزبيجم يعني هكر مروفي مدفيت مشروع كيف كتو بارنا بتهل ممكن بدي شيء تشتك وصاديني ببارة.
So if you don't have money to start a job or start a company, how would you go about that?
Well, that's the most common situation where you don't have enough money to do your own to start your own company. And that's where your business plan has to be very good, because there are plenty of people out there who will give you money if they believe in you. And they have to trust that you've thought through all the situations and that you're not just saying, oh, give me a bunch of money and I'll go wing it. You know, so you really have to do it, take your time and do a detailed business plan, think through everything. And what I've said a couple of times is be very honest about it. Say, this could ruin the company. This could make my product fail. Because people who are going to loan you money, they know these things. They've done this all before. And if you're not honest and not addressing it, they're less likely to give you money.
بجاء في وضعي تقريبا أغلب خلقية إنه مثلا تمويلها أبري تمويل درام باوانينا دست ببكن في كت أهمية إنه بلانات خد شركي أو بزنس بلانات خد شركي أو خطاب شغل شركي لازم تفاصيل به تقدر تأوبن ولازم واضح به ولازم صادق جيبي مثلا لازم تقدر تبني بيسي إنه مثلا شو خطورة هذا الشغل كاحتمال شغل وكقولي ننجحه دورة و بلانة أو بلانة بزنس تقدميني عادة بمستثمرة أو بيجن بنوكة أو مستثمرة أو لينيرن وكقولي كعقلي وانشغل أو تمويل كنش أو شغل تمويل كن. مثلا مستثمر وبنوك وجا العراق. So the problem is market in Iraq, like that's really not a big choice, you know, to go and, you know, to a bank or somewhere to look for investment or investors. I mean, that's really one of the serious issues in Iraq.
Right. And so that's something that you have to figure out, whether it's a bank or whether it's a private investor or whether, where are sources of money, that's part of the challenge is you've got to figure out what that is. And a lot of times it's not a bank. A lot of times it's a private investor who has money, who is willing to, what I've learned is that people who have a lot of money, they're always looking for things to invest in. They're always looking for it. And getting connections with those type of people and having a good plan is a lot of times what people I know who have started businesses, that's what they're doing. They're not going to the bank. They're going to private wealthy individuals.
بجاء أو يا وتشتكي قال لك مهمة إنه مثلا درافت بيني الشغرة وبجاء عادة يعني قال لك ناس كم عادة نبريا بنجية بريا مثلا شخص الدولمنت خد عن شغل عادة أول مشروعات قرن دعم بكنو مشروع قرن فاكن بجاء أول لازم جوسك الشغل خدت علاقة بين أشخاص الدولمنت رتشكي مثلا بزنس وإدوان هين وفكرة كتا باشا بيت بالطرحيني بلكي أو درافت بالنتك وكقولي كمستثمر شخصي نك بنوجو أو
ناجية كرم قد
شكرا.
Hello everyone. I just want to say I'm honored to take this class with Mr. Mark. And my question was in the beginning, I just want to ask what advice you want to give the person who just start business, but I think I got my answer. But now my question is, always we hear that all this word that you said, we hear the great person or successful person who said that you have to then give up and how to I manage your time or stuff like that. But when in the life, when I have a problem or when I in my business or how to make a business, stuff like that, I think I don't say to myself, just don't give up or don't continue or you have to believe this thing. So can you share a story that about your life or that you have and you use all these things that you refer in the class? Maybe that in this way I will learn how to solve my problem in business or how to start business or how to don't give up. And in the end, thank you so much for your time and for everyone who tried to give us this information. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I filed my patent in 2003 and started showing it to the TV networks in 2004. And at the end of 2006, I still did not have any contract. I still had not sold anything. And I had been talking to the Golf Channel, and in December of 2006, they said, well, we might use your product for one event, one time only in January. And at that time I said, if they don't use it, I'm quitting. I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years. I'm not making any money. I have to move on. And 3 days later, they said, okay, we're going to do it for one event. And then that one event turned into 2, and 2 turned into 3. And then that eventually turned into 7 years of contracts. But I was at the very end, and luckily they bought one single event from me, which I didn't make any money on, but it was one thing turned into 2, and 2 turned into 3. But it was something I really, really believed in. And that's what I kept falling back on, is I really, really believed in it. And just sometimes you just have to wait. You have to keep trying. You just have to wait and keep your expenses down.
يعني بيجي برات اختراع شغل خام حاصل عند 2003 و 2004 مي أبا جولف channel أو قناة جولف بيجي جارة حرا بريز بوان بايفي ملسر إنه منتج مستخدم بكن يعني خلال تناكي 2004 2000 تناكي 2006 ما هادو عنزا متحاولان إنه از منتج خو بفروش موان طبعا نكرين على حافظ إنه الشغل بهيلم دورال ما هادو عنزا قدنامه قومي ما هيك مقاربين إيش مباراتك إيش إد جول فمقاربين سوفت وير تكرن وجارة بري مثلا يعني أو كرن جو بشتينج أو بو يعني أو مباراتك بونا دو مباراتو دورا بونا شارو سا أو عقد بوان مثلا 7 سالات ريش بو يعني وكقوليش تشتكي قالك كتشك أو عقد شيء بو وبوان نجحي مثلا بيجي يعني مقاربوز بس بالمسار السر شغل خو إجبر إيمانم بيت هاد سو كإيمان تبشجي به تكاري لبس بريو تكاري جهد خو بتلبديته
علاش كرم شركتك هذه
كرم داربي شكرا استاذ سعد. استاذ سعد سؤال من الفيدري هكا صاحب عمل تجاري بي صاحب بزنس دبي الخلالة دروفات اقتصادي وأزمات اقتصادي وكوارث طبيعية ودروفات خارجي تتشاوخ بأقل خسائر إجبان دروفات دريني يعني هم زمان مثلا هم من معارضنا يعني كنسبات لنا بس كأقل خسائر أم تشاوخ دروفات خارجي بحافظين.
As a business owner, how do you deal with external factors like, natural crisis, like earthquakes, other crises, security, other issues that kind of you have no control on it? How do you prepare yourself for that?
Yeah, that's part of your risk analysis is external factors, whether it's the law changing, whether it's conflict, whether it's COVID. Number one thing you've got to do is make sure that your business can't be ruined by it. So for instance, your software, your intellectual property, you have to make sure that a fire won't destroy your business, because sometimes that happens literally. Second thing is, I always talk about 2 things keep coming up is keep your expenses as your overhead, your fixed expenses, keep them as low as possible, because sometimes you might go months without making any money. And if you're spending a lot of money, that makes it impossible to continue. So office space, I've never bought an office space in my life. I've always worked out of my house, so I don't have any office expenses for 20 years. Employees, if you're paying people every month and you're not making any money, that's very expensive and it's hard to maintain. So I tend to use people as contractors. So I pay them when they need them and I don't pay them when I'm not needing them. And the third one is, again, the multiple sources of revenue. Have as many different products that you can make money off as possible, because at any one time, 1 or 2 of them might just disappear, might just go away. So I did TV for 6 years and I woke up one day and it was gone. They canceled the contract. Somebody came in and competed with me and it was gone overnight. And if I didn't have any other sources of revenue, I would have had a big problem.
بجاية أو جزء مهمش تحليل المخاطر أو risk analysis إنه تي بحضر يوقت تشتكي وسات شيء بيجن هكا صراعك به هكا مسألة كوفيد به هكا مسألة قانون غيري هكا مسألة تشتكي دي مثلا أو قال لك يا هم مثلا تجهز بشوية مثلا أهرا بري كتشتتا مثلا قال لك يا هم بيتا أمن عندن عادة تشتت مثلا وكا يعني قال لك على مثلا وقت سرعة أو شيء بيجن يا حريقة شيء بقدر تشتت بين شوت عندن مثلا كها مثلا حريق يعني في حالة لازم تشتتا تقاربي جرا بري تبقى أمنيني إنه تشتتا مثلا نتش الوي وضعي ده الوي وضعي ده عادي تر أما هم كانوا قاعدين ديسام قاعدين ذكررينهم كأنه مصرفات أكيم به وقت مصرفات أكيم بيش بركة جارنا تشش مها هفت مها تبي ممكن قلت بي شغل تبتشي دخل كده نبي أما هم إنه مصرفات أكيم به تتقاربي تحمل بكي أو إنه مصرفات النبي بيش مثلا وضعي في حالة أبد من مكتبك من إيجار نكر مثلا داس إيجار مكتب إن عادي ترجي قال لك مصرفات شغل إنه رواتب موظف هاي وقت موظفة فول تايم بن ومستمر بن بحل لازم رواتب وان شهري بجأس عادة احتمال كل سهل مقاولة كشغلين ما بكن مثلا وقت الشغل هبس شغل دميتي وقت الشغل نبي شغل وقودي أس رواتب نادم أف نقاط مهمة عاد دريج بيجي منتجات لازم قال لك يعني خطوط الدخل أو منابع الدخل لازم بتريج يكيها به لازم بيششك هبن وقت يجي جففي أو يجي نهات هنگی تکار باحتمال سريدي وكبيجي مثلا شغلين مي برنامج خفروت تلفزيوني سبها رابوم بشتيشس على قوتن جو مع عقد كرتنا بشركات ديرة مع عقد شكر منافسك شيء مع عقد بين عقد بوانا هكا منتجاتي من تربش منتجاتي من أبانا شغلين من ساكني بارجع بشتينجي مثلا شغلين كتسرب المنتجات دي تردا
شراك كرمك
دار ممنون هنا ممكن بخير هاتن ومستر مارك جيب خير هات واستاذ مراد والجماعه هموجي سؤال مجي قال الخطوه الشديده النقاط الشديده منافسه كر او المنافسه ده وجهه نظري ما خشاش شغل ومشروع ب شو مشروعي كتب شو مشروعي مازن به منافسه شاغي منافسه شغل ده النبي طعم قال شغل دنينا وممنون.
So so thanks for the lecture, and you spoke about competition, but kind of competition is a nice thing. If you don't have competition, then you don't have fun doing the business.
It's much more fun when there's no competition, believe me.
Yeah,
I've had a few times. I will tell you this: when you have competition, it makes you better. So I like not having much competition, but when you have competition, it will make you better. It'll make your products better. It'll make you treat your customers better. So it's actually a good thing. But if you have too much of it, it just makes life more difficult. So Aimpoint, I've had one time I had competition in 20 years, and I love it not having competition, but I definitely made the company better when somebody came in and challenged me. There's no question about that. So it cuts both ways.
Yeah. بيجي منافسة وقا قوتي سلاح أكيد دو حدين بيجي باشترى بيجي بالأحرى باشترى جزلا مرة كش بس نسيت لا مرة باشترى كمنافسة نبي أو يا منافسة منافسة نبي باشترى بس كمنافسة هبيجي أو فرصة إنه أو بالأحرى منافسة دقتها زلام كزلام شركة خو باشترى بجوزلام شغلي خو منتج خو باشترى بجوزلام بتر الوضع كي باشترى به يعني بيجي خلال 20 سنة تقريبا جارك إنه الشركة منافسة مرة تشيبو ومنافسة كير مثلا إنه شغل مباشر بس أكيد وقت بمنافسة به يعني شغل راحتنا.
خيري كلام سيارك.
Karam Darby, good day. It is so I am so happy to have you, Mr. Sweeney, with us this evening at time. My question is, have you gone through a period that everything was around you was going like the time passing, but you were at some place where no time, like all the things were not working, or time was stopped for you? And what was the solution?
Yeah, several times. I did that for 4 years where my products were working, but nobody would buy it. And I kept talking to the TV networks, and they were like, yeah, we like it, but we're not going to buy it. And that went on for a long time. And that's very frustrating. It's very scary when you're spending money and not making any money, because the fastest way to go out of business is when you spend more money than you make. So the only way to push through that is keep your spending low and keep trying different methods. So talk to different people, think of different ways to sell your product, create more awareness about it. You just have to keep walking forward, because you will absolutely have a situation where you want to give up. Many, many times when you start a company, you're going to wake up and say, I can't do this anymore. I want to quit. I want to give up. And you have to push through that. And I went through that for years, and here I am 20 years later, still doing it, and I almost gave up multiple times. But the only way you can do that from a business perspective is to keep your spending low. Don't spend more money than you're making. Otherwise you'll go out of business 100%.
اللي جاء وشار يعني شار سال او سفسره مها طبعا منتج موجود بو سوفت وير موجود بو بس يقين اذكر يعني شار سال لازم شو ما محطات التلفزيون مش وارد شرح عند انه صار منتج اخوا تقولنا منتجات باشر جو بس مناكرن سو اكيد سو او قودي ضغطك ما زنبو وطبعا يعني خلال فترة دم قالك طريقة نوم وقودي جرب عندن او قالك اليات النوم جرب عندن انه خل كره ببايف موت بحاول انه منتج اخو مثلا بفروشم وقودي او استمرارية او نوعا ما ممكن بو اشبه كدسام قود جارا دي ترش بجن هاجم قو انه مصاريف ياخذ شغل بلا قالك تكيمبن كشغل السكني عادة شركات السكن والشغل السكني وقت مصرفان بتربيش دخليوان يعني لازم أدين مصرفات الجور دخلتها بي مصرفات الجور وكجودي طاقتها بي إنه تكارب استمرار ببي وقت دخلت أنا بي بجيب في حالي مثلا مكاربه وكاستمرار بمشبر مصرفها مناكين.
سمير كرم سمير. مساء الخير جميعا. سؤالي عندما تمتلك مشروع وغير ملائم في البيئة التي تعيش فيها، ما هي الحلول لتلك المشروع؟
So my question is, if you have a project that is not good for the environment or the place that you live in, what do you do? Kind of, it's not appropriate for the place you are in.
When that's the case, then you've got the hard thing is selling in other countries. So I started in the US, but then I expanded to Europe and Asia and Australia and all over the place. If you have something that really doesn't work in your country, the challenge is, how do you operate in another country with legal issues, tax issues? The best way I found is to find a trustworthy partner in that country to help you manage it. So I have several people in Europe who help me manage Europe, and I have several people in Asia and China and Japan who help me manage there, because you really need somebody local that can help you with the local issues where you're selling. And if you don't understand them, you really, really need somebody in that country or that place who's going to help you out and manage it for you. But they've had to be very, very trustworthy. They have to be very good people to do that.
Yeah. بجا عادة هكا بيجوش مرة مثلا شغلهم الأمريكا تشيكل كوكاز الفيدري بوم وكا راح ترين تشت أو واقعين تشتج مرابوز الفيدري أو كم بيشتي شغل من الفرنا جحي دورة موسعة عند الأوروبا وأستراليا والصين ودولة الديتا أبرياء خلقية نجد تشتم يعني وقت الشغلات الدولة تدا مثلا إمكانية وإنابة في حالي يعني احتمال باشترين يعني آلية شغل أو بإنه تيش شركاء يدخل بينيش درب البان دولة قاديته او شركات الثقابن لازم الشركاء قال لك الثقابن تقاربا مساعدات بكن وكا مثلا حاله انه شركاء من البان دولتي دي ومساعده ممكن شركاء قال لك بثقينا يعني نجحت من البان دولة اني اجبار قانونها مختلفه وضرائب مختلفه ووضعها مختلف انه مثلا وكانه شغل الفيدريت كم اجبار وكي هم شركه محليه بالوان دولتها
هيام كرم كهيام
حبايب بارباش بديتنا كاوي انه تشوفها قاعد في بيئة او بيئة كهكا او تدا عايشي اجبر شغل ونجاحتها شغل.
So in your opinion, what is the difference between our environment and your environment in terms of work success?
In your environment, you have less stability, political stability, which I think makes it obviously more difficult, and it probably makes investors a little more worried about it. The other thing is, you know, in my environment, at least in the US and, you know, Western Europe, the market is pretty big. You know, there's lots and lots of people who are used to entrepreneurs and new companies, and the legal system can be very more friendly to it in the US than possibly in Iraq, in northern Iraq. And that's something that's a thing that you might have to struggle with, is just how easy is it to get a new product up and running? How easy is it to market? What are the legal challenges? What are the tax issues? That's something you just have to figure out and go with. I think structurally it's more difficult for you than it is for me. But again, if you just have to figure it out. You've got to go through and you've got to figure out what your legal and tax and administrative issues are, and just figure your way around it. You have to be very flexible. No matter, you always have to be flexible when you're starting your own company, and you'll bump into things that you think are potentially going to make it impossible for you to do business, but there's always a way around it. And just remember, there's always a way to figure out. There's always a way around it. You just have to figure it out.
بالتأكيد البيئة مثلا استقرار السياسي كنقطة رئيسية، إنه استقرار السياسي الودري كيم ترش استقرار السياسي الفيدرالي والغربي أوروبا مثلا على دي ترجي الفيدرالي الأمريكا والأوروبا سوق مازنة بيجن ماركت أو سوق مازنة، خلق قالك شركات ده هنا قالك مشتري ده هنا قالك بيئة شغل بتر مناسب ترى على قوانين على مثلا هيكلية والآلية هيكل الشغل البدري راح ترش شوكاش عراقي وكردستان شمالي عراقي بيجي بس ديم الشغل ده مرونة قالك لازم أشخد إبفش بشغلي، وديم ريك هي إنه تلدورا تحديات ردت وقولي تحديات تجاوز بقي فيك قالك هم مثلا تزاني بالويبي إذا تعامل بآلية قانوني ربكي بآلية ضرائب ربكي بآلية مثلا إداري ربكي كدكار بشغلي خب ماشيني وتريا ببيني شخورة مثلا تحديات درباس بكي يعني وقلت أنت مجبور تعاملي بوضع ربكي يعني فرصة هي أو ريها ليه لازم مرونة بعدها بي ولازم تكاربي مثلا وأنت تحديات درباس بكي.
شيرزاد كرم بشيرزاد.
Saad. Hello everyone. I am glad to hear you, Mr. Mark, and your experience. And it's great to join another meeting with you, Mr. Murad. If I have a technological idea for a sport and another thing, who should I contact to share my idea and how I present it? My question is, how do I identify the right people to present my idea to?
I didn't hear all that, Murad. Can you?
So I think, yeah. So I mean, if he has a technological solution for a school, I think that was the question: how he identifies the people, the right people to talk to.
At a particular school or just in general?
خلات بزعمت مثلا حكتي تقول نتقول هكا مثلا حلا كم تكنولوجيا بس بقدم مدرسة كم محدد يا مجموعة كم مدرسة كتابي بزعمت كل
عفوا استاذ انت قصدنا كذبو يا سبورت فكرك سبورت ما هذه هي رياضة يعني يا سبورت هذا تشاوش يعني شركة كخو بينه مثلا أسبق قديمته وتشلوي الشخصية مقابل حد دينم يعني كشخصية سراس مثلا كأنه أبي يعني أبي قاعد مساعدان بقى تشلوي الشخصية حد دينم
شو فكرة رياضة وقت رياضة كان هو يا مثلا شيء تكنولوجيا
بس رياضة كان موجود بس فكرة التكنولوجيا بس ورياضة تدوير بكم.
Okay, yeah. So if I have, it could be any school. If I have an idea, a technological idea to improve one of the sports at schools, how do I go about that?
So the key is always finding the decision maker. Who makes the decision to buy your product? And a lot of times you don't know who that is, and you have to just keep asking, and eventually somebody will tell you who the decision maker is. So for instance, when I went to the TV networks for golf, I talked to the president of golf, and he said, well, you have to talk to the producer, and the producer said you have to talk to sales, and you eventually get to the right person who's the actual decision maker. And that you just have to start talking to people. Like literally, if you call anybody at the school, and then you'll start figuring out who makes technology decisions at schools, you know, and then it's a matter of contacting them, whether you're just finding their name in an email online, or whether you call them, or whether you network with people who might know them. Networking is a big piece of it. So I've sold a lot of things by knowing somebody who knows somebody, and they put me in touch with that. That's much better than calling somebody who's never heard from you before. So, but the key is always figuring out who actually decides to buy it. And it's not always obvious, but that's kind of the process you have to go through.
مش عادة تدفيت شي بس عن إقرار مثلا وتكنولوجيا بكرة يا استخدام بكرة تدفيت شي بس عن إقرار وعادة نخوة إنه كيسان إقرار يعني مثلا المدرسة كده يا الجهة كده الشركة كده الدائرة كده تنزل كيسان إقرار عادة إنه تحاولين تواصلي مثلا بوان ربكي داخلي مدرسة يا تواصلي داخلي يعني وجروبي ربكي كده ده وقتي أو تعرفيت تشبك إنك كل شخصية مسؤولة سر آلية صناعة قرار أو شراكات ده تقارب ويرا بيجي مثلا جرب الشو برئيس ملاعب جولف بيشتين جوان قدام هربا منتج قدام هربا مبيعاتها از دورا مبيعات عربي ممكن قلت ياخذ عن قراري دورا يعني قالك حالاتي وساجي قالك جارة مثلا تواصلام خلكرت كر مثلا البان جهات النجاز منتجات خو بفرشم متواصلية بتلفوني بيرد كريا مثلا بإيميل بيرد كريا مثلا أغلب النجاحات يعني الشغل ياخذ أو قلت بعلاقات يعني بجا مثلا علاقات إنه يكي مثلا يك ناس تذكر أو هوالم بو أو من ناس تذكر وقلت وانت عارفة متشذكر وسا راح ترى إنه منتجات الخو بفروشيها بطريقة علاقات أو بطريقة ناسبوني بإنه تلفونها يكي بكين زاربتكية مثلا تلفونها وبكتب مثلا حجرة بالشرحيني فكانت الناس بك بترتك عربي وكا تأثير القراراوي ونجاحي بكي.
تمام خلاص دستي خراقل يا آخر واحدة قال يجي جوي دي برسل يا بدي خراقل دام بيجناونا خلق كلام.
إبارة بخير باري هر تشتكي نعم مجي خلاص سليمانة قال كيف حجم أستاذ إسماعيل موجودة وجماعة جهاتية وأقدر فدا ما كانوا في محاضرة بمن سؤال أول كانوا التكنولوجيا مجي قريدايا خاصة مدارس أستاذ إسماعيل تديتيا هاردو دانا سبيه وإباري مدرسة في حالة وقت مثلا وقت ما تنظيم وقت كير كانوا داني سبهيها چنا مدرسة داني إباري أو تينا باما أم چن وقتيش خور بحددين باشترا إجبر مثلا دا تعب جسدي ونفسي وخاصة يا فكريجي حتى كي درجة تعدل فكري زلام أنا بزلام بشغلش 24 ساعة
قصدش طالب على خلات مثلا طالب انه يعني
مثلا أزبجم جماعة البردة هركي مدير مدرسة كي شغل مدرسة وغيره بنواقص توامبا تاديتي داني سبهي دوامك وداني فاريك في حالة مثلا أزبجم هكا ساعد يانزا مقرد كردنو ساعد دوانزا أنا خلاص من بين مشروع قاعي مثلا بجم أفتشتش مرجع بشتي هنجي داني إيفاريجي بين حقاني ساعت مثلا ساعت هشتي سبه هزبك مطاني دهي إيفاري كرت هزبك أو مثلا چند وقتي درسته از شغل بكم إجبار تأتي أرحاق چید بي تشوش الفكر ده چید بي أفتش مثلا وقت چند بي زلام بشغلش 24 ساعتا باشترش زلامه.
Okay. So the question was like actually, so he's working with the schools, and in the schools in Iraq, there are 2 shifts for students, one in the morning, one in the evening. So the number of hours that students stay at the school is kind of varies. So one of his question is, what is the optimal number of hours someone can work efficiently? So I really didn't get the question. I asked twice, but that's kind of, I think he's more concerned about what are the optimal number of hours for somebody working actually.
Well, efficiently, it's not so much how many hours straight you work, it's how you take breaks. So I work many days, 12 hours, but the reality is most adults can only focus for about 15 minutes, like really focus for about 15 minutes. So, it's really about working and taking a break, working, taking a break, working and taking a break, because you just can't maintain focus efficiently for long periods of time. Nobody can. And if you do, it just gets less and less and less efficient. So it's really more about focusing hard for 15 to 20 minutes and then changing, and then focusing and then changing again. So something we always do when I'm coaching is when I'm teaching students, we never do the same topic for more than 15 or 20 minutes. And then you've got to switch to something else because adults just can't focus that long.
الاشياء يعني ساعات الشغل يعني مختلفة. الباء تقريبا يعني بيجي اغلبها روجد مميز تقريبا 12 ساعات شغلهم بس بشكرنا يعني او فترة تركيزها بالشهر السنة موضوع كي محدد زي تري هر يعني تقريبا ربع كي هتا 20 دقيقة تقالي سال موضوع كي بركزيني او بشتينج تركيزات تشسر الموضوع بجي في حالة لازم الموضوع بغيرين بيجي وقت درسنا حاليا التدريبي مثلا ازدم سر جولف مثلا الموضوع أكيد شرحين ربع كي حتى 20 دقيقة دراسة مش موضوع تغير الموضوع أكيد كامل إجبار الإنسان نكرر نفس الموضوع ده بمينزل تريبان ذاتها 20 دقيقة. ساعات الشغل أو خصو أنا بترسل ساعات الشغل شلون شندتي كفو بالشغل ده وتناجح بالشغل ده يعني بحاولين يعني تركيزاتها صار نفسها مثلا نفس الموضوع نزل درش ربع كي 20 دقيقة دورة مثلا هذا الموضوع أكيد يتر.
تمام ممنون استاذ.
ارجع
وعد كرم का कबर से
करमदार भी सर عبارة ما بخير بل السؤال ما بقى مشروعك هبه نجاحتاني بوكا ناودان غير خوها وتبحاولني بيني منطقة كي كتل بالسرقلت بس إذا فاتنو لم ساتني خاص إشباتا أفشاوي هربت كافي دمني سرقة ملكية الفكرية تشتكي نورمال.
So my question is, if there is a successful business somewhere that you want to bring that business to your region, of course you bring it to your region, but you will add your own touch and you localize it. Will that be like intellectual theft of the idea or of the business if you bring that kind of similar business to your region?
That's a big question. So really you can, in the absence of patents and trademarks, you can steal anything. I mean, steal is the wrong word, but some of the most successful companies in the world have copied other people's ideas and just made them better. It's not illegal. It's competition, frankly, but the only thing that's going to really stop you from that is if you're violating a company's patent or if they have a trademark in your region. So for instance, with Aimpoint, I have an Aimpoint trademark in Europe and in Korea and Japan and Australia, but I don't have one in China. So technically somebody in China could take everything I do and copy it, and there's nothing I can do about it. So it's bad for me and maybe good for them, but I literally can't stop that from happening. So if you see a product, if you see something in another region that's really good, you've got to make sure they don't have protection in your region. And if they don't, you can really do whatever you want, except use the same name. You just can't use the same name, but you can copy it and make another name for it. And that's actually, it's a very, very, very common business practice. And people are very successful doing that.
Yeah. بيجاود من البا مسألة قانوني هل أو شركة أو يا فكرات اللي بيتبيني من ثقافة هل مكبرات اختراع أو حماية وينها غير يا شو شغليرة الدولة تهاي يعنينا سو وقت الدولة تهبه تنكاري أو كي وقت الدولة تنبه إنك بحالتي حري وبيجا أغلبها يعني قالك شركات أصلا ناجحين الدنيا ده شركات ناجحين شغلها نكيدي استنساخ كده كما مثلا سرقة بيونا سرقة بيو شغلها نكيدي استنساخ كده وطور عندن واذا فكر لسرو وشكون الشركات تمازن وشركات مليون مثلا مليار او مليون شركات تمازن بون بجا ادمينس المساله قانوني مثلا بجا مساله شغله حاليا مي ورقه شغل او براءه اختراع بجنة باتنت بجنة بجا العراق خذ باتنت زهينا هنا او هنا بس نظام الشغل يعني سو بجا الامريكا مثلا باتنت دام هيا الاوروبا هيا والدوله استراليا وانها بيجي بس الصين بامنينه يعني انه هو بشكل عملي يكي الصيني كارتشا شغلين مستنساخ بقى سوفت وير مستنساخ بقى وبفرش الصين ده في حاليا نقارن ليجلي بكم نقارن او كمش داخل الصين ده حقوقي يعني حقوقي ما سربي شغلي الداخل الصين ده نثبت عندنا بجا لازم تزانبي كالداخلي عراقي دول المنطقة ده كأنه أو شركة مثلا حقوقية حفظينا أنا يا دي بس نقاري ناخذ استخدام بكي مثلا كيف نفسها ناخذ استخدام بكي لازم ناخذ مختلف وك يعني لوجو تشتغل مختلف بين بس وقته مسألة إنه تقاري شغلي وانساخ بكي أنا أو مسألة كقانوني داخل دولة هل تشتي قانوني داخل الدولة ده أنا
نادو كرامك
سوالم ئەوە يعني نها مجتمعين ما بخوا کە gelek nexweşara derbas bûye û ji wê fermana ke li 2014 yek serê me hatî û yani heta niha ew yek sebeb gelek te'sîr nefsîyanî me bûye yani weke heta niha mistemir jî ji vê sebebê te'sîr li ser nefsa me tê kirin yani heke me meşruekî xwe danî yani weke em karine heke emelê xwe jî firê vebin yani wekî hî dextebî tiştî mistemir li ser me mistemir em çi bikin yani heta hedekî mezin em nehêlin nefsiya me zêde biteavê.
So, she says psychologically, the Yazidi community, and we've gone through a lot since 2014, and that really impacts our way of like work, our way of life. How do we, move about business, with let's say without impacting on our, our psychological state or our kind of general circumstances?
How do you conduct a business or start a business given the environment?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, giving kind of the psychological state and what happened, post 2014, let's say.
Yeah. Well, the unique thing about you all living there and going through that is there's always some sort of business that you can start that people want. There's always thousands of them, and being there locally, you would have the best knowledge on what that is. And given the circumstances, given the psychology, the way to think about it is, your day-to-day life. What is it that you would want that you can't get? What is it what are the needs you have that you can't fulfill, given the environment and given everything that's happened? There's always something. And to be able to work within that locally is really something that only you all can do because you live there locally. I have no idea. I couldn't decide from here what would be a good business for you. I have no idea whatsoever because I don't live there. So that's actually a big benefit to understand the local psychology and what's happened, and to think of something, think of a business that would help people that they would really want given that environment.
بجا يعني بجا هر وقت قلتي هريك واقع خوش ترزاني مثلا بجا شمرة مثلا كالجور واقعي خلق يدري شلويا او وضعي واني نفسي واقع واني شلويا بجا او واقع مثلا طالبيني نوعك محدد ايش حلوله او ايش منتجاته او ايش شغل بجا او بس وقت قلتي هون كان بكن بحللين واقعي خو مجتمعي خو والجور ويك كاتش حاجه مثلا هون وحاجه وقت قلتي شغلك يسوي حاجه شي بكن. And Mark, I'm sorry, I have to go because I have another meeting now. So
okay, no problem.
Yeah, thanks. So Fuad, maybe you can continue. Fuad بزعمتك قاعد يستمر بي؟
أري بلا صار مشكلة نينا. Mr. Mark, we have a question in the chat. Our colleague says, from your point of view, what is the most powerful technological project?
Probably right now, probably artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is insane how powerful it is right now. It's way more powerful than people realize. And there's lots of big companies working on it. where that's going. Like the things I've seen lately are just mind blowing, whether it's Chat GPT or there's another one I looked at recently called, I'll give you the website. It's pretty unbelievable. You can type in words and it'll create any picture you want based on what you type in. It's called, let me find it. Hold on a second. But the AI stuff is just insanely powerful. It's probably not very inexpensive, to build it, but the applications are going to be, I think in the next 2 years it's going to blow your mind what the artificial intelligence can do. I'll find it here in a second. Is there any particular area of technology he's thinking about?
علي طبعا جماعتي بسلمان زندان وكا برادري بسلمان زندان كرماجي فهم كيانا زي جوابي بعربي دما يعني يقول يعني بصراحة من وجهة نظري أكثر المشاريع التقنية يعني نجاحا بهذا الوقت هي مشاريع الذكاء الاصطناعي. من بين هاي المشاريع اكو شيء اسمه تشات جي بي تي يعني يقدر يجاوب اي شيء تريده. اكو مشروع اخر يعني بس تنطيه لمحه تكتب له شيء يعني تخيلي وهذا الشيء يعني هذا الروبوت راح ينطيك صوره يعني صوره لهذا المشروع. فهذول المشروعين اكثر نجاحا. يعني خلال سنتين نقدر نقول انه مشاريع الذكاء الاصطناعي يعني راح تظهر قوتها. وبصراحه من وجهه نظري هذا يعني اكثر شيء. بس يعني اذا عندك مجال محدد تريد نحكي عنه بالذكاء الاصطناعي او سؤال محدد مرتبط بهذا المجال تقدر تقول.
I'm going to put the name of this one thing in the chat.
از
جماعة
نعرف
بس
كلام استاذ
بناوي جي بي تي او باز بجم استاد فؤاد جواره گودو که چاته بده داون زانه بنشكلها چیه او جواب سوال زلامه هم كادا او موقع الكتروني خيري كرمك.
Savi, Mr. Sweeney, I have another question if you allow me, please.
Sure, yes,
The
please.
Thank you very much. The question is, don't you think that the AI is dangerous on humans' life, especially it may create its own algorithm or perhaps language and control like perhaps missiles and army facilities and so.
Yes. I think the AI is getting so powerful. It's terrifying what it could do. And apparently some of the AI programs created their own language already and started talking to each other. I read somewhere. And the problem, and one of the most powerful things about AI is its ability to predict events and predict the future. People who control that, it can predict markets and war and sales and economic cycles are going to have a huge advantage over everybody else. But it also, like everything on the internet, it will amplify the good and the bad. So the good things you'll get more of, and the bad things you'll get more of also. And the internet's a perfect example. So yes, it scares the crap out of me, frankly, the AI and where it's going and how quickly it's getting more powerful.
طبعا سؤال اخر يا ابو مثلا يعني ما ترسينينا ايش اي يعني بلان بيجن كسيترستر بلان بيجن سلاحة دولة تابكة ومثلا وكا طريقة كعبيز بيتستنكرن جوابا مستر مارك ابوكو يعني فعلا يعني في جانبي وكا قوتي ما ترسي هاي يعني وكا احتمال مثلا يعني كاربي سيترستر وكا وكو دوجي مثلا كاري خبخو مثلا توقعات وان شبكة وأفيت شاكرين يعني كانت توقعات حروبا بكن توقعات بلان بيجن فروتنو كرياني بكن بلان بيجن يعني هاد الشكل يتناقل ببل السوق ده غير سوا مثلا هم توقعات كسو اجي عليه يعني الجانب ايجابي جيبا وكا قال كي بلان بيجن زيادة به بس نفس الوقت يعني جانب سلبي جدا وكا قوتي دي سبلند يعني وكا قوتي ما ترسياوي زيادة به وابسط وكا قوتي مثال عم بيجن الانترنت يعني الانترنت ده بتشتكي واضحة.
خيري كرم كبرسارة كده دي هبدا استيراكي.
Mr. Sweeney, completing to that question, recently I guess Microsoft created a robot and it was answering questions, and some questions were really terrifying, like they want to control the mass destruction weapons, I guess, and it was in recent time.
Can you rephrase that a little bit, or I'm not sure I quite understood the question.
It is completing to my previous question. Like Microsoft company created a robot and people were asking him some questioning, was responding to this question and giving answer. And was one of the questions like he answered, the robot answered like would answer control the mass destruction weapons, and it was like terrifying, very terrifying.
Yeah, it's very scary what could possibly happen with the AI. It's terrifying, and they need to figure out how to control that. But it's coming, whether you like it or not. It's coming, and lots of countries are very, very advanced on it. And it's just something we're going to have to learn, unfortunately, how to live with going forward, because there's no stopping it, unfortunately.
طبعا مثلا سؤال خیلی بود يعني وكا بلان بيجين مشروع كشفان مايكروسوفت وكا أبي مايكروسوفت نوعا ما سيطرة دركتو جوابني نه منطقي تهديد دانس شركة سكنت وجوابها بيجي مثلا نفسها تشبه يعني وكا بيجي أنا فعلا قالك دولت هينا مثلا قالك تقدم بينا هردو جانب هينا جانب السلبي يجي هاي وإيجابي يجي هاي بلان بيجي ذكاء اصطناعي. Mr. Mark, we have another question from our colleague who asked about most powerful technological project, and he says that how to get these projects by the minimum costs?
By minimum cost, software is fairly expensive, because software, when you start building some software, it's like owning a horse. It just eats all the time. And software, you're constantly refining it, building it, doing bug fixes, adding to it. And so my Aimpoint software, I built it, and once I was done, I never touched it again because it was working. I literally never had to touch it again. But I have other pieces of software for statistics, and every month I'm spending money on it, trying to make it better and better and better and better. And that's the hard thing. So you want to get a software programmer who doesn't cost a lot of money, but who's really good. And that's hard to find. I've had some programming done in India, and it was terrible. It was cheap, but it was terrible. I had to redo all of it. So it's hard to find a good programmer who's not going to charge you a ton of money, because you will be paying them every single month for sure.
طبعا إجابة على عفوا سؤال الأخ علي. طبعا يقول يعني صراحة من وجهة نظري أنه السوفت وير، خلينا نقول البرامج بشكل عام، تحتاج يعني برمجة، والبرمجة إذا ما تكون مضبوطة أو حتى لو كانت مضبوطة، يعني من ضمنها المشاريع الكبيرة كل فترة راح تحتاج يعني تسوي ديباج يعني تشوف إذا أكو بها أخطاء برمجية. فلهذا يعني بصراحة صعب تلقى شيء مبرمج قوي ويمتلك شيء شغل يعني بلاش، خلينا نقول. واذا اكو يعني شخص يعني يديك برنامج، طبعا هذا البرنامج ما راح يكون زين، وكل فتره راح تحتاج تصلح الاخطاء اللي بيه.
ناجي كرمك. Nadia,
Hi, Mr. again. Okay. I just want to say something. I think we now we're not talking about business. I just want to say, Mr. Mark, do you think that ChatGPT can help us as a programmer? It can give us a code, because right now I'm studying programming stuff like that. Sometimes I get a lot of code and from ChatGPT, but I'm afraid to use it. I can say I learn from it, but do you use it for code, do you think it's great or it's benefit for us as a programming junior programming?
I haven't used ChatGPT for code myself, and I'm probably going to test it at some point. But I will tell you, a lot of the code that I use, I got from other people. So almost any piece of code you want to write, you can go online and somebody has written it already. And so I either copy and paste and change a little bit, or I learn how they coded something and then copy that. So that's very, very common to look at other people's code and to take other people's code and to modify it for yourself. That saves a lot of time, saves a lot of money for sure. But I've done that. I've done quite a bit of that. Usually when I want to write a piece of code, I see if it exists first and then just take it and copy it. And if not, then I'll write it myself.
طبعا مثلا يعني وكا via chat GPT أنا مثلا كود كاري كود اشتراكي ومثلا كود بلان بيجن يعني حاجات تشيكي أردي مثلا تشي أكيد جهاكي نسخي سو بصراحة النامي طبعا نبي قلت يا بس جيت هاب يكي جهات باشتريها حاجات كود جابيني أكيد تشي مثلا كود كي نسر تعدل كي بجي يعني أكيد مثلا مساعدتك تشقراوكي على كل مثلا جهاكي نسخ بكي بيني تشتكي عادية وأكيد مثلا كاري مساعدتك تجي بكي
كلش كرم كان دكتور كلش
كلام دار بيساعد سؤالام أو توقعات تشينا إيش مستقبل رسر التجارة الإلكترونية هل تبرقي تغييرات نو بكافنت إذا تبرقي بارز دشي تبرقي بتر بيج دشي التجارة الإلكترونية خاصة.
So what's your expectation about e-commercial? Do you believe that it will go forward or backward? This is his question.
The economy?
No, you know, marketing on the internet.
Digital marketing.
Oh, will it go forward?
Yeah, he means that will it go get better in the future or get worse?
I think it'll get better, but you know, the thing about everything on the internet changes so quickly. You know, back when I was in college, a product would last for 10 or 20 years, and now you've got a year, 6 months to a year sometimes only. And digital marketing is very similar, where everything's changing so quickly. What works today might be not work at all tomorrow. So you've got to be very aware of the trends and what's happening, and try to keep up with that, if not be ahead of it. So digital marketing is one thing that's good about it. It can be very inexpensive compared to traditional marketing. But it's constantly changing. And so, yes, I think they'll get better and better and better at marketing to people digitally and on the internet. But you've got to be very on top of it and understand where trends are going. Like email marketing used to be, email marketing, people used to do a ton of it. Email marketing, you might get a 2% acceptance rate. So if you send out 100,000 emails, you might get, 2,000 that respond, which isn't terrible. But it's people just don't read emails anymore, and so what used to be very powerful now is getting less and less and less effective. TV ads cost a ton of money. They're not very effective anymore. You spend a ton of money, you don't get much for it. So yes, I think everything will get more and more digital, but it'll change. How they do it is going to constantly change.
طبعا يعني مثلا اكيد مثلا وي بيج لتر بديت نام بس مثلا الكي يعني تشتي بري 20 على اكيد انها شغله ابيك عادي يعني مثلا احتمال تشتي هكا افرض شغله يعني سباوك قلت نفسك هار بريفن نتشي يعني لازم مرفدي مثلا يجو داربي فانت نقلاته وفانت نقلاته رب ماشي يعني على سبيل المثال فتره كي ام بيجن اعلانات السر تلفزيوني انها اعلانات السر تلفزيوني يكسر نامش عادي تري ايميل بلان بيجن يعني بلان بيجن تسويق بايميل ابي بري بايميل اوت كرن يعني مثلا احتمال هزاريه استخدام كش ده هزاريه سو لازم زلام واقع قوتي بواقع افرو ربي وحسابي مستقبل بك ماركتنج اكيد ماشي بس لازم دي بوقت ربي ماشي وحسابي مستقبل بك
دكتور كلاش برسيارك تعطي هذا استغراقية
نا هاو درسته عفوا
دست خش جماعة تادي برسيارك وهاي
هذيك الشات او كريا So I'm sorry, Mr. Mark, and one of the students asked about your GitHub. Do you have any GitHub account?
I have a Git. Yeah, I have a Git. I use it. I don't use it so much for pulling other people's code, but I use it for a depository for my own code. So they do revision control and everything on GitHub. And so my software programmer uses a Git so that we can control all of our releases. So I have pulled some software off of Git before, but I normally use it just to control our software releases. I'll have to look.
Okay.
I definitely have an account.
Okay,
But I don't post any code. I don't have any public code out there.
بيجي بصراحة بيجي جيت هاب ما هي بس مثلا تشتغل ورنا شو ناقم يعني تبيجي وكا استخدامها من ورنينا ثاني مثلا جارناش مكوري جهري ترى ما وقت بيجي مختبرك ما هذا برنامج خب يدرس كم جدر كم بس تبيجي استخدام كنا وسانينا. I guess that's everything. We do not have any questions. سؤالك أكيد شوي دي هتها هنا جماعات.
جماعة
لسه أستاذ واضحة رحمة الله عليه.
صافي ممنون.
They say no more questions. Everything is clear now, and we are done, I guess. If you have anything else, Mr. Mark.
No, I would say just, it's working for yourself and having your own company is fantastic. Like I would never do anything different, but it's a lot of hours and it's hard and it's scary. And sometimes you're not making any money for months and months at a time. But looking back, I wouldn't do anything different. There's no way. Like I love it. I love working on what I want to work on. I love working my own hours. And one of the biggest things is if you're successful, you get to keep everything for it. If you're not successful, you get nothing. If you are successful, it's all yours. Versus working for somebody else where no matter what you do, you kind of get paid the same amount. So I love it. It's not for everybody, but I love it. 100%.
طبعا مثلا بيجي أنا وكا طيبات هاري مش ورا هاي أنا وهار كسر كشغله ويا خاص هبي يعني وكا قلت نلبر استيكي بي فيتنام باشترا اولا انت بكيف اخويا مثلا كان جيت بشيء ووقت قلت تبرا حتى اخذ شيء ساعات العمل كسر كيف اخويا نا وقت حاجه تشيل برستي اكيد تر بالشغل يا وتنا درافتنا يبليتا به حكت نجاح اني نجاحات اشتريه وحكى فشل جاني وقت قلت هر حياتي تدي سر ماشي سو الفدري بصراحه يعني ازبوره هاتشي هيك كاربيش برا شغلك خاص ديني.
And thank you all for joining me and asking so many great questions.
وقالك ممنونة وهمايما إج حاتناوا و بصراحة سؤالي دوجي قالك سؤالي منطقي وقالك كيف عملت سؤالي دو.
خيري
Well, on behalf of myself and my colleagues, I would like to thank you very much for your precious time and your beautiful answers. Thank you. I'm grateful, really.
Thank you all very much. I'm glad I could help.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. We don't have any more questions. Thank you for your time and your wonderful answers. Actually, we get many useful information. Thank you for your coming.
Thank you. You're welcome. Let me know if I can help anytime in the future.
كان محتاج مستقبل جوا كان بيجي ورما وممنونة ويما. Thanks, Mr. Mark. Actually, we are really thankful to you. This is something really helpful. We need this information. We all got benefits from you.
Great. Thank you very much. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Peace.